Tonight on Command School, play like the pros. I'll show you how to graduate from point and click to hotkeys. Plus, part 3 of my sub-faction breakdown, those mind-bending aliens of Traveler 59. And I'll break down some real military strategies you can take with you to the CNC battlefield in our new segment, The War Room. This ain't no summertime rerun, this is Command School. You're watching Command School, I'm Greg Kasavin. I was just playing the dev build of Red Alert 3 and let me just say, it's shaping up pretty well. There are plenty of interesting new gameplay mechanics, units, and powers on offer, not to mention the completely new Empire of the Rising Sun faction. Luckily for you, the public beta will be starting up soon, so you too can join in on the fun. To register, all you need is a beta key found exclusively in Kane's Wrath. It's not too late, so if you haven't already, pick up the expansion pack and head on over to redalert3.com to register for the Red Alert 3 beta. Oh, and for a good measure, you get to play Kane's Wrath. Until my inaugural Red Alert 3 beta episode of Command School, I'll bring you all the tactics you need to survive in a post-mecha spam Kane's Wrath. Let's kick it off with some tips you can learn from the pros in For Noobs Only. Hotkeys are the key to speeding up your gameplay. Instead of constantly dragging the mouse to the sidebar and then back into the field of play, using hotkeys allows you to significantly increase your efficiency. Don't be scared of the keyboard. These shortcuts won't be hard to remember. Some of the most used hotkeys are the ones that select your build cues. E, R, T, Y, and U. These shortcuts take the place of clicking on the buttons in the upper right of the screen below the map. In order from left to right on the keyboard, the hotkeys select your primary build cue, defensive structures cue, infantry, vehicles, and aircraft. Once you have the appropriate build cue selected, you can use the function keys to select the unit or structure you want to build. F1 will select the top left structure or unit, F2 is the next one to the right, and so on, like a number pad. Once you've built a structure, you can also use the same function key to select it and drop it on the map. With all these keyboard shortcuts, you might be tempted to use the arrow keys for moving the camera around. While that can be handy for new players, experts use the rapid scroll feature to move the camera by holding down the right mouse button. Once you get used to all of this, you'll really notice the difference in how much more quickly you can get your base going. In battle, hotkeys can be used in clutch situations to use your unit's special abilities. Think of your unit's abilities as a sideways L. Use the top left ability with Control A, the one below that with Control S, the one to its right with Control D, and the last one at the bottom right with Control F. Some units like the Prodigy actually have 4 special abilities. Think of the carnage you can unleash by almost instantly calling in all 4. Some other essential hotkeys to bear in mind: use D with your tanks to make them reverse move, to lure your enemies into a trap without exposing your weaker rear armor. And you can quickly switch between guard stance and aggressive stance using hotkeys too, in case you want to fire and forget once you're inside an enemy's base. Lastly, let's go over some of the most essential hotkeys for moving and selecting your units. One of the most common hotkeys among RTSs are for setting control groups. Control 1 through Control 0 will set a hotkey for the group of units you have selected. Pressing that number again will select that group. Or, in a pinch, Q will select all your units on the battlefield. If you have a unit selected, hit W to select all the same units visible on screen of that type, or hit W a second time to select them all across the map. While moving your units, you can set waypoints by holding down the Alt key. This is great to make sure infantry go around a Tiberium field or for queuing up attack orders with your army. If you can't remember the hotkeys right away, keep the hotkeys insert that came with your copy of CNC3 near you while playing or under your pillow when you sleep. It lists all the mappings of the default hotkeys and it pays to keep them all in mind. Now let's head on over to Casual 1 for part 3 of my sub-faction breakdown, featuring the alien invaders of Traveler 59. Traveler 59 is recognized as the mind-controlling masters, having not only a commando that can seize control of enemy units, but also a mind-controlling Tier 2 unit in the Cultist. The Cultist is unlocked by a stasis chamber and nerve center, which means you can gain access to this unit fairly early in the game. And unlike the commando, you can have as many cultists as you want, running around the map mind-controlling units. Here are a few tips about the cultists that you may not have known. Cultists are a garrisonable unit. What's even cooler is you can garrison the cultist in an enemy unit after taking control of it. Take over an APC, then run your cultist inside for protection. If you don't have any garrisoning units nearby, be sure to send your cultist away as soon as it takes control of a unit. There is no range limit to the mind control, so you can run your cultist back to a safer area all the way across the map if you want. Keep in mind that when you mind control a unit, all its abilities can be used, including those powers that your opponents spend good Tiberium on upgrading. Also, try using cultists with a wormhole ability. Send in a wave of cultists, take control of an army of units, then return your cultists and your new fighting force back to wherever you came from. Cultists are especially viable when you're behind in the tech tree. If you're not prepared for those mammoth tanks and zone raiders, just put some cultists on your front line. Be sure to protect them with anti-infantry and anti-air units like gunwalkers, though. So grab those top-tier tanks, reverse move them to crush infantry, and fire at will at the enemy. Of course, Traveler 59 has more than just cultists. Another strategy to use is Ravager harassment. Ravagers are unlocked at the same time as cultists, and your nerve center gives you two support powers to further harass your opponent: Infestation and Agitate Tiberium. Use Infestation to place a structure that looks like a mix between a buzzer hive and a growth accelerator in an enemy's TIB field. Instead of increasing the rate of Tiberium growth, the Infestation structure will damage enemy units entering the field. This is especially lethal against Harvesters. Next, charge in your Ravagers and hit the Harvesters with Agitate Tiberium for a crippling blow to their economy. Agitate Tiberium can be used on any TIB-based unit or structure. This includes a whole bunch of stuff like upgraded Nod power plants, Tiberium chemical plants, silos, corruptors, TIB spikes, growth accelerators, Tiberium-infused infantry, and mechapeds, to name just a few. And don't forget about these two upgrades: Advanced Articulators and Traveler Engines. After building the stasis chamber, select it to purchase the Advanced Articulator upgrade. This will make all your infantry move significantly faster. It's pretty much a must-have for this sub-faction. To boost your air hit and run potential, purchase Traveler Engines from the Technology Assembler. This will have the same effect on your aircraft. Your opponents will never know what hit them. One other key support power for Traveler 59 is Tiberium Vibration Scan. While many people use this early on to locate their enemy's base or outpost, this is also a great late-game ability. Like Agitate Tiberium, Tiberium Vibration Scan works on anything with Tiberium. Now then, seeing as how CNC is a real-time strategy game and all, what can we learn from real-life military strategists and apply back to our playstyle? Here's a breakdown of some famous real-world military maneuvers in our new segment, The War Room. Throughout history, great generals have used daring military strategies to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat or crush their enemies outright. Tonight, we take a look at a few military strategies that have proved to be effective in actual historic military conflicts. First, we have Blitzkrieg, which in German means lightning war. Most remember this strategy being used early in World War II by the Germans. The theory behind Blitzkrieg is to strike fast and strike hard to throw the opponent off balance, break through an enemy's ranks to force him into smaller pockets, then come back to mop him up. In-game, focus a heavy attack at one point of your enemy's defenses. The key here is to use faster units to smash a hole in their defenses, which will cause the defense to splinter. After rushing through the defense line, fan out and attack the smaller groups from the rear, preventing flanking and hitting exposed armor. A counter to a Blitzkrieg, or just a general defensive tactic, is the hedgehog defense. American soldiers used this defense in the Battle of the Bulge to defend against the devastating Blitzkrieg. In a hedgehog defense, defenders aren't deployed in a single front line, but in fortified hedgehog strongholds. Offensive units are allowed through initial defenses only to be surrounded by these well-defended pockets. In-game, build a lighter front line of defenses, whether with base defenses or units. Keep these pods repaired and defended, but allow possible attack routes through these defenses. When your attacker passes by your initial defenses, have heavy teams behind the defenses to counterattack. You'll now be surrounding the enemy's units. GDI's Dig In ability and the Nod Reckoner are great for setting up these types of choke points. The last tactic we have is more of a general military philosophy used throughout history, known as the hammer and anvil. Think of this in terms of the common phrase, between a rock and a hard place. The hammer is your attacking force, and the anvil is a natural barrier or heavily defended position. Use your attacking force to press your enemy up against the edge of a map, a river, a cliff, or up against your own base defenses. For example, on the map Deadly Sartau, you can use an attacking force to press your enemy up against the banks of the river that runs through the middle of the map. With no retreat possible, hit them hard with your heavy units. Now, it's time to hand it off to you, the CNC Elite, for tonight's edition of Command School Honors. Got a great strat for Kane's Wrath? save the replay, add a voice commentary track and telestration for extra credit, and email it over to commandschool@ea.com. Don't forget to include a summary of the strat in the body of your email. Tonight's tip comes from Duke Kurtz for the Steel Talons. It's simple, but quite useful. Place a repair APC so that the docking area for the refinery is within the repair radius. It can be a good way to increase Harvester survivability against small raids. You should garrison both the repair APC and the heavy harvesters, but use mixed troop types in the garrisons to defend against different types of enemies. If the enemy decides to severely harass, then having 2 repair APCs per refinery may be a good idea. The second can be a backup if the first gets destroyed, or they could simply repair 2 units or structures at the same time. The repair APC can repair the refinery if that gets attacked too, and you can place a sonic repulsion field on the refinery to further increase its armor. Of course, if the going gets really tough, it's still a good idea to retreat your harvesters behind a building. I'd like to take Duke's strategy one step further and apply it to any faction. You can place a war factory near the edge of a tip field or in front of a refinery so that your harvesters will be constantly passing by it. Whenever they enter the factory's radius, it will repair them a little bit to keep them at full health. Send me your strategies for CNC3 or Kane's Wrath, and maybe you'll be featured here. Now before we go, it's time for the GameReplays.org Tip of the Week.
The Tip of the Week, brought to you by GameReplays.org.
Let's talk mines. There are 3 types of mine drops in Kane's Wrath and 2 in CNC3. GDI players have APC or mobile repair vehicle mine drops, Nod and Black Hand have an air support power mine drop, and the Marked of Kane have magnetic mines, also a support power. Let's take a closer look at the different types of mines. GDI has the ability to litter a map with mines using APCs or mobile repair vehicles. Each vehicle can drop its own small minefield for 500 credits. Since you can have multiple mine drops and the cooldown on the ability is pretty short, GDI players can go crazy with these. Use the APC MRV mines to defend key buildings, place them in choke points to thin out an army, or place them near enemy harvesters to harass them. Magnetic mines are a Marked of Kane support power. While the power costs more and takes longer to recharge, the mines are also more devastating. The magnetic mines attach to passing enemy units and deal damage over time. This makes them great mines to lay near a Tiberium field or enemy refinery to kill harvesters after a period of time. You can also place magnetic mines near possible expansion fields to attach to your enemy's outpost creating unit. As it's setting up, the mines will do their job and kill it. Or if you think your enemy is going to pack up his MCV, lay some mines nearby to attach to it as soon as it becomes mobile. Magnetic mines are more effective in early game as they can take out Tier 1 units much quicker. The only way to get rid of magnetic mines is to repair the unit that is being attacked by the mines. The third type of mine is the support power for the rest of Nod. These mines are airdropped on any part of the map that is currently revealed. The Nod mines have a larger spread than an APC mine drop, and they're slightly more expensive to compensate. This power is great for quickly deploying mines across the map at a moment's notice. A good tactic to use with Nod mines is to lure enemy units in with a Redeemer. Once your enemy sends everything he's got to kill your epic unit, hit the Rage Generator and send their units running all willy-nilly throughout your mines. And that's all I've got for tonight's episode of Command School. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to the Red Alert 3 War Room to perfect my strategies so that I can bring them to you in a future episode. Until that beta launches, try out our new military strategies and practice your hotkeys. Then, try and win a Traveler 59 match without mecha spamming. You'll be glad you did when the patch hits. And keep sending your strats to commandschool@ea.com. Dev tested, player approved. For Command & Conquer TV, I'm Greg Casado.